Welcome back to the Raising Our Vibration podcast, where we explore higher consciousness through spiritual practice. And today, Stephen and I are going to talk about managing change by shifting your state with meditation and biofeedback. So this topic was prompted by Stephen sharing a document with me from the World Health Organization that was entitled Foresight Approaches in Global Health. And what really struck me as I read this was, and this is kind of an instructional document for their staff. So things that they want their staff to be on board with and skillful at. And what really struck me was that it's all about managing change. It's all about how do we approach change. And that got us both thinking that really that might be the most common experience that we're all sharing right now, is that we feel like there's so many things that are changing right now. The landscape of our lives is changing so rapidly in so many ways, whether it's health and dealing with the pandemic and all that changing landscape of that, and or climate change, or the economy and how it's related to both of those, and also to technology, which is always changing and asking us to keep up. So we're in this cultural environment where we are being asked to relate to and handle a massive amount of change, maybe more change than in known human history. And at the same time, it seems that media and corporations and political organizations have learned that if they stoke fear around change, that is a great way to sell whatever they're selling. So we have, besides all this change, we have all these messages that tell us that this change, we should be afraid of all these changes. And so that just escalates our feelings of stress or overwhelm. And it reminds me of, in polyvagal theory, of kind of three states in relation to change and in relation to interacting with our environment. One would be just our natural relaxed openness, that polyvagal theory and all these other spiritual traditions that Stephen and I have studied and practice and share always talk about, that we, in essence, in our deepest being, we have a natural relaxed openness, a natural state of awareness that is peaceful, ever peaceful. But so where is that? If that's natural to us, what's happening to us? Well, that gets covered over with these messages of fear. And the result of that is that we either go into a state of stress, chronic stress, because we're constantly getting these messages of fear and we're constantly seeing all this evidence of change. Or if we just get so overwhelmed with stress for too long, we shut down and we just kind of go numb and deny that anything's happening. So, and you can see these responses in really prevalent in our culture, from those who would just deny that any change is happening, or just, all of us feel some level of stress in relation to change. And so the question is, how do we get back to our natural state of relaxed openness and flow? And so that's really what we're all about here on Raising Our Vibration, and all the meditations that we teach, and the classes and group meditations that we offer, and the ROV meditation app and so on, is helping all of us recover that natural relaxed openness within which we can approach change in a really healthy and growth producing way rather than a protective, resisting way. We can approach change just with a relaxed openness and ability to flow with it and really grow from it. So, Stephen, I'll pass to you to maybe talk either a little more about what we discovered in this WHO document, or maybe some client experiences you've had about that relate to how to shift into this natural, relaxed openness within which we can approach change in a whole different way, from a whole different point of view.
Oh, Kevin, that's beautiful. Thank you. And love and blessings to everybody who is listening on this beautiful day, wherever you are. And I was considering, Kevin, that as I do that, I could perhaps describe the process, then you could guide everybody into that gentle, open awareness that allows all change to arise within it. So, yeah, I'll outline a process with you as you're listening that I've used with large groups from all over the planet. And these are from every walk of life. So I was this week in a number of situations where I was dealing with people from, you could say, all extremes, from people who are dealing with lots of struggles just in simple personal ways, or people that are dealing with personal struggles with very large corporations. So I thought this would be a really nice way to frame this for you, that no matter where you are and what you're doing, there is some kind of change, just as Kevin has been speaking to. There's some kind of change that is happening to us. And primarily you want to frame what you're working with. So in other words, what kind of issue you're struggling with or battling with, or it's usually that kind of feeling, right? There's the change might feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so you want to frame this first, what the actual issue is, and then look at the context of how that issue arises and what the context for change is. So as you're listening to me, just consider for a moment what your actual focus is in terms of life and the change that's happening. And sometimes this, you could break it down to really simple ways. It could be something to do with your health personally, or perhaps a family matter or friends. So maybe there's friends or family or yourself that's struggling with health. So that could be your focus, and that could be the change that you're facing. Equally, it could be on an abundance level. So it could be any angle of that, either that you don't have money to do the sorts of things that you'd like to do, or perhaps you're dealing with a lot of money and you're struggling to make some choices when the economic landscape is changing so rapidly. Or it could be in relationships, either relationships with colleagues at work, or it could be your own personal relationship in a marriage or a partnership. Or equally, it could be on your spiritual path, that you're struggling in some way with understanding where you're heading or what your focus is. So that's the first part. What's the issue? And just simply framing that to begin with is incredibly useful. So if you bring that issue here, so how I do this and how I do this with groups is I ask you to bring the issue here. So the question you could ask is, what issue, question, or problem keeps you awake at night? So that question. And I always ask people to write it down. So because something happens when you get it out. My mum always used to say, better out than in. When you get it out on a piece of paper, there's something that happens to the context. You actually see it. You've put it down in some clear words, and so you're able to frame it. So just ask yourself, what issue, question, or problem keeps you awake at night? And just write down whatever comes to mind right now. So that's the first thing. What you're doing is you're actually touching in with what's actually present right here and right now. It's just a type of openness or transparency, that you're just simply being open. So at the moment, I'm going to write down, my wife's been struggling with a health issue just recently. So I'm very aware of that at the moment. Doesn't keep me awake at night, but it's certainly an issue, question, or problem that together she and I have been working to solve. Okay, so that's the first thing. You're writing that down there. Then I want you to ask, where do you feel this in your body? So that's the next part, is just and write that down too, so that you're very aware of where you hold any stresses or any kind of confusion, any obstacle, any obstruction. So if my wife gets very sick, or my daughter, I tend to first get in my stomach. So there's a sense of, oh, there's a movement there, and I'm very aware of that, and it'll come up, and I know how to deal with it. I breathe into it and I say, okay, I need to be here for my wife and daughter. So that happened when they got COVID. They were very, very sick. And so I was very aware of that energy in my belly, and I did something about it. I did some mantra chanting actually at that time, which was extremely helpful. So ask yourself, where does this problem, the feeling around it, arise in your body? So, and write that down too. So I do, okay, it arises in my belly. I'm usually aware, or I might get it in my, usually in my belly, or the upper part of my stomach. Okay, so what you're learning there is where do I hold energy? Where do I hold energy patterns when I struggle in some kind of way with some sort of obstacle or issue? So feeling into that. All right. And then I want you to ask yourself these following questions. And these are the ways that WHO has suggested that you approach this. Now, one of the suggestions I make is you actually record this, or that you write it down, or equally you could film yourself, because in somatic awareness, quite often when we answer questions that perhaps are striking a chord with us, somewhere in our body, you may actually discover something. So you might feel your face change when you answer the question. And that might actually give you a guidance of, oh, I never realized I'm whole. If I ask you to look into the future, you might feel a lot of fear around the future, and it might show on your face. So doing this, and no rehearsal, you're doing this very transparently and openly. So you're just really learning about yourself and the way that you embody stress or strains or obstacles or troubles, right? So here's the first question. If you were a clairvoyant and could see into the future, what would it be most useful to know now? So if you were a clairvoyant and could see into the future, what would it be most useful to know? All right, so this could be on a personal level, or it could be on a global level. So in my situation, I might say, oh, well, I want to know that my wife has met the right doctor. Yeah, it could be something as simple as that. So what would it be most useful to know? Okay, and then the next one is, what is your most optimistic outcome? What is your most optimistic outcome? Yeah, so if you look into that, if you look into the most optimistic outcome for change. So in my case, it might be, oh, well, my wife's recovered and she's doing fine. Wonderful. And what's your most pessimistic outcome? Right. So generally, I don't think about the most. I'm a perennial optimist. So I don't generally think about the most pessimistic. But where I did think about the most pessimistic, it would be that my wife continues to suffer and she doesn't find the right doctor. So that would be a pessimistic outcome. What's your most pessimistic outcome? So you write that down. And then what would you have to change internally to achieve the optimistic outcome? What would you have to change inside yourself to achieve the optimistic outcome? Right. And I'm going to go into that in a minute. And Kevin is also going to guide into this. But fundamentally, what I'd want to change internally is that I'd want to feel the knowing that everything is in flow. That's, for me, what I'd change internally to achieve the most optimistic outcome. But it could be whatever it is for you. And then the next one is look back. If you're looking back, so you're in the future, you're basically your future self. And then you're going to look back to today. What has shaped that future for you? So I'm looking at this from the future self point of view. Who looked at it a little bit differently, but I'm going to look at it from the future self point of view. If you consider a projection 20 years, what has shaped that future for you? So in the situation of health, I'd want to feel that health on a family level had become a global awareness, that there was a real genuine, I would hope that over the next 20 years that we kind of learn from the pandemic, and that we learn about really global health awareness and the fact and how we can all help each other. That would be something I would hope would shape both today and the future. And then the last two questions. So looking forward, what near-term decisions are required? So looking forward, in your case, in the issue, what near-term decisions are required? So for me, it's simple. My wife and I are right in the process of finding the right woman's doctor for her health. So looking forward, what near-term decisions do you need to make? And then the last one, what would you do if you were freed from all constraints? So what would you do if you were freed from all the constraints, if everything was in this open flow? So in my case, it's quite simple. Our family would relax. My wife has been quite tense around this. She would be in the tender care of a woman doctor who understood her, because she's been to many who don't. And she would feel a lot more relaxed, free, and open, right? So the next part in the step that I take before I pass over to Kevin into this gentle guidance into open awareness is that I then ask people, so one of the crucial things that happens to allow us to really be open to the solutions as they flow through us is to find that flow state, to find that flow awareness that allows us to be open to change. So I want you to consider a time when you really tapped in or were connected to a flow state, or a state that allowed you to deal with whatever change was present in your life at that time. Right? So I can remember a time when I was at university and I was facing some very serious exams, and I was a student of Yogananda's at that time and had been so for many years. And what I did was I breathed through. I used some of those very simple breathing practices with a mantra, just simply Om or Om all the way through as I was studying. And I found that by practicing mantra, in my case, I was able to get into this really simple flow state where all the exams seemed incredibly easy. And also it allowed me to be very open. I found that a lot of the memory work I'd done around the exams became very easeful. So there was this openness to what happened. So the mantra, in fact, served me very well and allowed me to access that open, aware state during, very quite crucial third year, of bachelor's exam times. So I did very well in those exams. I always put it down to the fact that I was well supported, in this case by mantra practice. So what's present when you think of a flow time or a flow state? Is there a time in your life when everything seemed to just flow? Can you relate it to I want you to be very particular, because sometimes when you go back so I can remember exactly what it was like. I remember the particular exam. It was a stage 3 or year 3 English literature exam, and I had to study the poetry of Yeats, and it was like flawless. I actually felt I was Yates during that exam. So I had to go in front of the professors because they thought in some way that I cheated, but I told them no, I was just in this flow state where I could literally remember everything. And I could remember all the poems, and it was just like, it was like one of the most beautiful exams I'd ever sat. And that just came from getting into that flow state. So I can remember it now. You can see it's making me smile. So find a flow state that really makes you smile. And so and I want you to actually feel that in your body. And just like you did with the stress, so I noticed that stress comes to me more in my stomach when it is there. And what about my flow state? Well, it's a bit more in my chest. It makes me sort of bubble up with laughter. So so I'm starting to learn about the way that I embody stress. And I'm also starting to learn about the way that I embody pure and open awareness. So usually when I'm in my heart, I feel this vast and open awareness, and I'm very present to it. And what Kevin's going to do is I'm going to pass back to him, because now that you're very aware of where you embody the flow, or the flow state, or the state that allows you to deal with change when it happens, Kevin's going to guide you into this gentle flow, because there's a sense of being able to bring that flow. Once you know where it is, I know it's in my chest, that I can allow that aliveness in my being to saturate my body. And this is something that Kevin and I guide all of you to do often through particular cues. So I'm going to pass back, Kevin, now to you, now that people have started to embody both where they struggle with change, but equally where they're accepting of change and allow it to flow with them. So I'll pass back to you now to guide us into that beautiful sense of flow and open awareness.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, thank you for that beautiful setup too, and those questions. And one thing before I go into guiding the practice, one thing that I'm very present to is when people aren't able to connect with that feeling. Because as we learned from polyvagal theory, first when we are dealing with a change that's overwhelming to us, first we're in a high stress mode, but then if the stress is persistent, we go into shutdown, and then we can't feel inside our bodies, right? And I think that, as you and I have found in teaching interoception, inner body sensing, is that it's really common, and don't feel bad if you're in this place right now where we're asking you to feel something inside and you're like, I don't feel anything in there, or or I just feel some pain, or it just feels dark, or it just feels like nothing. So that is part of this whole stress environment that we're in, this fear environment that we're in, that it's really common to be in a place where we've learned to shut off the feeling in our body. And really we're trained to do that, like from when we're really little, right? When we're sitting in school, we're trained to, and we want to move around and go outside and do stuff, and we're trained to ignore our body sensation and just focus on this task. And then we're trained to do that really well, and then we go into jobs where we're trained to do that again. Is we're trained to ignore how the body's feeling, ignore our emotions, and just focus on the task at hand and get stuff done, because getting stuff done is all that matters. And then over time, we lose our inner body sensing ability, right? And so if you're experiencing some of that, know that is something that our culture is conditioning. And so to engage in this inner body sensing and finding this natural openness and flow might take some practice, and it may happen in just really small increments. And another thing Stephen and I find is that people will, in meditation, will often say, oh, I didn't feel anything. And then we'll ask them to describe a little more. And they actually did feel something. They just disregarded it, right? Right. So there, you can feel stuff in here. You just may be used to saying, oh, that's nothing. I don't pay attention to that. And so just part of this rediscovering our natural openness is just being open and really noticing what we do feel, even the tiniest little thing, and building on that. And
Kevin, you just reminded me just before I lose this thread,
yep.
is that you just reminded me when you said that there was an artist in that I was dealing with in the US, and she said the same thing. She said, "But I can't find any place where I felt that." So sometimes it helps. Sometimes it's in nature. Sometimes it's just a simple natural moment that you're lying on grass or you're paddling in a pool. Sometimes it might be she had a favorite nephew. And so when she got the photo of that, I asked her to get a photo, and she looked at the nephew and she suddenly brightened. And I said, "Oh, what do you feel?" And she said, "Oh, I feel so good when I see." And that was the moment, right? So sometimes what Kevin said is so wise. Sometimes you might not be feeling it, and what you might touch onto sometimes it's just a brief memory of with kids or with nature. Those are often really good ones, or with a grandparent or with a pet. Quite often I notice, Kevin, that people, because this is such a good discussion about how to feel it, because you're right, many people struggle with the feeling. And a gentleman I was dealing with who couldn't feel, said, and then suddenly he had a wee dog around it, jumped up into his lap, and he was patting and go, "Oh," I said, "How do you feel?" He said, "Oh, I just love this. This has been my, baby for however old the dog was, 14 years." And I said, there you go. That's the feeling. So yeah, just I'll pass back to you, but it just jogged my memory when you were saying about the numbers of people that don't. And those were just a few examples where people couldn't feel it. And then something simple like a photo, a pet, a natural moment, out in wide open nature, just simple things can actually do it for you.
Beautiful. Yeah, great examples. And that reminds me too of, and this relates really strongly to flow, is that I'm involved in beta testing with the Flow Time headset for their new biofeedback. And what's it called? It's called Flow, right? And so as the biofeedback can be a wonderful tool if you're able to access the state and just touch into it, and you hear the sound and you're like, okay, I hear the sound. What was I doing? It makes you really aware of what you're doing internally. In that who question, the what do you need to do internally to have this experience? So biofeedback can be a great tool when it's designed to, and this flow time algorithm is designed with 60 different parameters that they're associating with flow and some testing. And they're saying, well, does that feel like flow to you? Is that when you hear that sound? And so it's really interesting to tune into different inner states, different focal points, and just notice the subtle shift that is associated with what they're calling flow. And then to describe that. Well, what are you doing? And how does that feel? And then what's the purpose of that? And I've really found they're doing a great job there with the brainwave patterns and the heart rate and the breathing rate and the level of tension, relaxation in the body, to be reading all of that and to be helping you hone in on a state that's just very relaxed, very present, very steady, very still. and open. Oh, I feel it right there. So that's what I want to guide you into now, and so we together can have an inner felt experience of this. So let's use some of the cues that Stephen and I always use in our meditation, and then we'll also open up for you to individualize this so that you have a sense for your natural state of flow. So let's begin by finding a comfortable upright seat. And we suggest having your feet flat on the ground. And so you really feel the ground. And we did this practice with our feet in our guided meditation on Thursday that I really enjoyed. So I'm going to do it again today. And that is just to pound your feet on the ground, alternating. So you just kind of, it's like you're running, but you're sitting down. So your feet are just back and forth, pounding on the ground, and you're really feeling the vibration in your feet. So just feel a natural running flow and feel the vibration of your feet hitting the ground. And just maybe 10 more seconds. Just kind of feel that. Maybe pound them a little harder. You really get that vibration. All right, now stop and close your eyes. And just feel the vibrations. Maybe you have a tingling or a warmth or sense of presence in your feet, in the soles of your feet on the ground. Just to really tune into that sense of vitality and presence and vibration in the soles of your feet. You really feel it. Notice what happens to your mind as you're doing that. You might find your mind kind of quiets down as you awaken the sensory awareness. You might smile as you just feel that warmth in your feet, feel the contact with the ground. Really tuning into that present sensation. All right, good. And now let's go to our hands. And let's just rub those hands together really vigorously. Really let your whole body get into it. Press your hands together. Rub them together. Get some nice heat going. All right, now just rest your hands, palms cupped in your lap. Close your eyes. And feel the sensations in your palms. So maybe you feel that same kind of vibrancy, that same vibration, that tingling aliveness in your hands. Just soften, relax your hands. And smile as you appreciate that feeling of aliveness and vibrancy and relaxation. And also feel the openness in your hands cupped in your lap. Feel that open space. So not only do you have this vibrancy and relaxation, but you have this openness. And feel that open space in your hands. And up through your arms and your chest. Feel that open space through your whole torso and up through your head. Even down through your legs and feet into the ground. Feel this open space of your body. And smile as you appreciate feeling this open space inside your skin? Can you feel the entire space inside your skin? Now, imagine a string attached to the top of your head, just drawing your spine a little more upright. And notice that feeling of energy just flowing up through the core of your body when you sit upright. You have this aliveness, almost like this subtle electric current just running from perineum in the base of your spine right up through the core of your body and through the top of your head. So there's a vertical spaciousness. Smile as you feel that aliveness, that feeling of empowerment and openness, spaciousness. Now just notice in your body anywhere that this really feels open, relaxed, and just naturally free. So maybe it's in your heart or your hands. Could be in the center of your brain. An open space there. It could be down in your belly. So where do you feel openness, freedom, spaciousness? Could be your whole body or your whole energy field. So just notice. Now let go of any sense of practicing and just rest in this feeling of relaxed, natural openness. And this felt sense of being. Simply being. Nothing to do. Simply being. Open and aware. And smile as you enjoy simply being. Very, very slowly, staying very still. You can begin to open your eyes and take in the feeling of the space around you, together with the space inside. This natural, open space of being. This freshness of now. Notice how that feels. And what would it be like to approach any of the changes you're experiencing from this state of natural, relaxed openness? Just noticing what's happening inside and around you. Accepting it, welcoming whatever's happening, just as it is. And just allowing the natural response to come forth. Well, thank you, Stephen, for that beautiful discussion and practice. thank you all for watching, for listening, for participating with us. Your practice really matters, not just to your life, but to all of us, to our collective consciousness, to raising our collective vibration. So thank you for practicing with us here. And if you'd like more information on meditation and awareness practices like this, you can visit us at raisingourvibration.net. And there you can learn about the ROV meditation app, the Raising Our Vibration book, and the different courses we offer, as well as our Facebook page. And you can email us from there as well. So thank you for being with us here. We look forward to seeing you next time. Until next time, thank you again, Stephen, and bye for now.